Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Friday morning to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there. It is Friday, so I figure most of us are doing pretty well, unless, of course, you work on the weekends or your work week is starting today. But regardless, I hope you guys are doing well out there, having a great ending to your week, beginning to your weekend. And certainly appreciate you folks joining me this morning as we discuss what's going on. It continues to be a very active month of June, and today is not going to be any different. We're going to have active weather, severe weather across the northern plains, all the way down to southern sections of the plains, really speaking of the high plains. And then the same system is going to really plague the Midwest tomorrow, and then even get into areas maybe like the Mid-South, the Ohio Valley, as we get into Sunday. And I'm kind of worried about Sunday. We'll discuss in detail on Sunday here in the coming, probably the next video or two. But we'll definitely keep you guys ahead of the situation. But of course, in this morning's video, we're really going to focus in on what's going to happen for today. But we'll discuss a little bit on what could happen over the weekend towards the end of the video. And then, of course, we'll give you an update on the tropics. We did have Tropical Storm Cindy, which was dubbed Cindy yesterday evening. So we'll give you a brief update on the tropics too. I want to tell you guys, I will probably not have a video this evening. Me and my wife are going on a date night. I'm pretty excited about it. And I just want to acknowledge one comment that I saw, and it really acknowledge anybody thinking this. I know that I have a pretty stout standard on this channel of making 2 videos a day. And I've mentioned many times towards maybe a couple weeks ago that as you get into summer, things slow down. There's going to be days where I only make 1 video a day. But it's been so busy here in the month of June that you just keep on pumping out the content because there's things to talk about. You got to keep people aware. But just know occasionally, I'm going to take a break. And the person was not rude or anything. He actually came at me in a way of concern, but I'm good. But of course, sometimes you just get home from work. I mean, I'm human, guys. I'm not a robot for sure. You get home from work, you're exhausted, and you just want to chill. And even though there is things that warrant making a video, you just get tired, guys. So appreciate, I know 99% of people probably understand that, but I do want to acknowledge people who might get frustrated. Just bear with me. And, we do have a life outside of YouTube, but you guys are my family too, so I like to keep you guys aware. But with that being said, if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put it in the comments below so I can pray over it and so others can do so too. Let's get rolling here. We're going to take a look at water vapor loop, as we always do. Nothing different here. And it shows really what's going on pretty well. So we're finally, and let's hope this works, we're finally, you got this swirl going on kind of right here. You're finally getting this low pressure, this upper level low that's finally getting up and moving out the southeast. But you're still going to have a moist flow coming into this region. So basically in this entire region today, you're still going to have a ton of showers and storms. But as we get into the weekend, the chances for showers, some downpours, will work its way more so into the northeast, but it will not be as messy as it's been in the southeast over the last few days. I can't rule out some severe weather across the southeast, even though the Storm Prediction Center, what I'm about to show you, does not even show a marginal risk. You cannot rule it out today. A little bit of dry air wrapping around this low, but I mean, you're probably not feeling it much. As you can tell, if you can't, I'll try to draw it out here. There is a ridge building over this region, and basically anybody under this line I just drew is going to be very hot today. You're going to have even a chance of storms, even kind of on the below, kind of under the ridge into this section. You already have some convection ongoing right now. So you're going to have storms that explode later here today, this afternoon to the evening hours. What I'm watching here is this upper trough. You see this thing digging right into here. There's a low pressure forming, short wave trough with an associated low pressure with it. This is going to move in general this way. On the upper portion of this ridge, you see on the line right here, and as this low pressure ejects, eventually it's going to move back southeast. So I know this is lines everywhere. You're going to have severe weather in this entire area, potentially all the way throughout the weekend. And I know that's all over the place, but I hope that helps. But that's kind of what's going to be the driver throughout the weekend. Today, obviously, the severe weather threat's going to be right into here. But through water vapor loop, this is what's going on. If you take a look at what's going on at the surface, you take a look at radar here. Hopefully it doesn't glitch out on me. I think we're good. Okay. You're waking up to a lot of heavy rain, even some severe warning storms, especially in South Dakota, even an area of intense weather working its way through Nebraska. But unfortunately, this could be just even a teaser of what's to come, really. I'm expecting a pretty intense line of storms later this evening into the overnight hours to potentially work its way out of Wyoming into Nebraska, southern sections of South Dakota. But the tornado threat will definitely be in Wyoming today. Let's not get too ahead of ourselves. But what's falling right now, this is actually not a severe warning storm. It's a flash flood warning. This is a severe warning storm in the upper region of the panhandle of Texas. A lot of rain falling in northern sections of Florida. You've dealt with a lot of rain down here. You're picking up a lot of rain even this morning. But you're getting some shower activity working its way into Ohio all the way to Detroit. And then this will be a storyline here in the eastern Carolinas, eastern Virginia, the Delmarva region, all the way to potentially New York City, just scattered downpours, and you're already seeing it this morning. You look at the Storm Prediction Center, the big storyline today is the severe weather risk right in the middle of the northern plains, which you consider really Montana, Wyoming, Nebraska, and the Dakotas. Even some people even consider Colorado the northern plains, but this is the high plains right in here. You got severe weather threats all the way from the northern plains to the southern plains. Okay, you're probably going to get an attachment of this later today. This typically happens, but you got a slight risk down here, which includes Amarillo. You're getting severe weather in this region right now, all the way up to a very small southwest corner of Kansas, all the way down to Lubbock. And, you know, you have the enhanced risk up here, which includes, this could broaden too. I could see this expanding, but you got the enhanced risk of severe weather in all of eastern Wyoming, northwest and western sections of Nebraska, and southwest sections of South Dakota. I could see the slight risk getting wider, even in the enhanced risk getting wider. And you might get a moderate risk issued somewhere in here today. I mean, I would not be surprised. Remember, I'm making this video before 7 a.m. Eastern time, so another update will come out in the next 2 hours. Tornado risk. I can almost guarantee you're going to get a tornado in Wyoming today. And listen, even though you don't have a risk of a tornado down here in Texas, it's been weird. Okay, it's been very weird. There wasn't a high risk of a tornado at all for Denver, but in the southern sections of Denver yesterday, you had a tornado. Now, it looked like a massive wedge tornado, but it's wild. I'm not seeing any huge reports of damage in the southern sections of the Denver metro. So it must have just been a wide area of just rapid rotation, but not a full-fledged wedge, but just not hearing and seeing a lot of reports of extreme damage of what a wedge would normally produce if it was to go through a major city and things like that. But please know that just because there's not a 2% risk down here or any risk, you could have a tornado risk down to Amarillo and then Lubbock. But I'm telling you, from Cheyenne, especially just north of Cheyenne, and these smaller communities in eastern Wyoming, and even western areas of Nebraska, even southwest South Dakota, a tornado threat is there. I wouldn't be surprised if you get a 10% risk issue. We'll see what happens. Wind threat, now this is going to happen. Basically, you're going to probably get rapidly forming supercells that probably get going in Wyoming, western Nebraska, maybe even South Dakota. This will quickly develop into more of a linear mode, and then you're going to have a significant wind threat. You have a 30% risk of winds exceeding 50 knots or higher. That's 55 to 60 miles per hour in this area, and a hatched risk in the entire 30% risk, which is a 10% risk of winds exceeding 65 knots or higher. That's hurricane force winds or higher, which is around 74 to 75 miles per hour. Hail threat. Not only do you have the 30% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch, you also have the hatch risk, which also goes into the 15% risk of that same criteria I just mentioned of significant hail, which is hail exceeding 2 inch in diameter or larger. I always re-go over all this information for any new viewers. Okay, so big threat, and I could see some hatched risk getting issued down here on later updates. Flooding risk, you're probably going to get a lot of rain, especially in Montana today, but these storms are going to blast through South Dakota. I mean, you're already getting rain this morning in these areas. Nebraska, a couple inches of rain is probably going to fall. A couple inches of rain is a lot different than a couple inches of rain down here in the south. You can get 2 inches of rain from a storm in 45 minutes here in the southeast. You get 2 inches of rain in 45 minutes out west, it's a little different. You don't get as huge rain events as you do maybe in the southeast. But usually when it rains, it pours up here, and that's going to be the case today. So you have a slight risk of flash flood guidance, which is at least a 15% risk of flash flood guidance being met within 25 miles at any given point. Watches and warnings, heat advisories. I think the heat is going to increase over the weekend potentially, but the kind of the dark red, almost burgundy looking color right here is excessive heat watches. So that's telling us that the heat's going to build. Red flag warnings is getting quite dry again in areas in New Mexico, Colorado, and Arizona. Heat advisories building back again. Heat advisories are in the orange, excessive heat warnings in the purple, building back again in Texas. Hot weather expected again. And then you still got the flood watches down here in the Panhandle and Big Bend regions of Florida, Southwest Georgia, and then up here in Montana in one huge county in Wyoming. Everything's just bigger out west. The counties, everything. I mean, look at this county in Wyoming and Nevada. I mean, that's about like size of 50% of the state of South Carolina. So everything's just bigger out there. But the weather in the southeast today, we'll kind of breeze through this quickly because it's going to be the same similar pattern. Not expecting super active weather. Can't rule out some strong to severe storms. H4 model not doing that great of what's going on in Florida right now, but we work our way into later in the morning. Expect numerous showers and storms to fire up probably in eastern South Carolina, eastern North Carolina, eastern Virginia. These will work their way through. And then as kind of a weak cold front pushes through, as this upper level low moves to the northeast, you could have a shift in wind direction and maybe some showers and storms work more so from kind of the northwest to the southeast into the afternoon, evening hours into this region. You get a closer look. And like I said, you can't rule out more shower and storm activity. In fact, it's almost guaranteed. Down here, kind of at the border of Georgia, Florida, even some pop-up showers and storms down here, kind of getting really close to the coastal regions of Louisiana. But you get a closer look at the Carolinas and everybody in between. Expect a lot of shower and storm activity. Tropical air mass still in the western fringe of the eastern fringe of the Carolinas. So, from Raleigh points east, Fayetteville points east, and everybody in between. Even Columbia, South Carolina to Orangeburg, Florence, Myrtle Beach, Charleston. If you're heading to the beach today for the weekend, expect a solid chance of some storms. But the good news is, as we work our way into tomorrow, much better weather weekend for all of us. But you get into the afternoon, the evening hours, a lot of shower and storm activity working its way into the mid-Atlantic. And then, like I said, the flow kind of changes. A little bit of dry air works in, but it's not going to be that noticeable. The Northeast are dealing with some showers in Ohio this morning. These will continue to kind of spin around with the associated upper level low, and some showers can make it as far west as central Michigan. But expect a lot of shower, heavy downpour storm activity through the Delmarva, all the way up to eastern sections of PA, all the way up to New Jersey today. Even some storm action right here on the eastern panhandle of West Virginia, western Maryland. Storms are possible also, in western areas of Virginia. I know I keep mentioning eastern Virginia, but some storms are possible. Roanoke, all the way up into the higher elevations of Virginia. Expect some storms. Maybe a more organized area of storms kind of straddling that area of New Jersey and eastern PA that might ride and then weaken as it makes its way into New York State. But, you can't rule out some heavier downpour shower activity all the way up into Canada, from working its way south to north, all the way up throughout the entire state of New York, as we work our way into the late evening and overnight hours. And then I think we'll wake up tomorrow morning to more widespread rains across the Northeast in general. Closer look at the mid-Atlantic, and I think Washington D.C. could pick up a good bit of rain today. We'll see what happens, but just a closer look at what could happen today. Expect a pretty rainy, kind of stormy day in the Delmarva, Delaware, coastal regions of Maryland, even getting into eastern PA. You're going to get a lot of rain today. This is getting into about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's just you got shower and storm activity pretty much everywhere in this region. So expect that today, and this is just rainfall between now and the next 24 hours. It's really jipping this area of the Delmarva, but I really think you'll get more rain potentially in Delaware today. But it really likes eastern sections of Virginia, southeast PA, and then central areas of Maryland to get anywhere from 3/4 of an inch to maybe 1.25 inches of rain. We'll certainly watch and see what happens with that. So expect a rainy day across the capital region. the South Central U.S., really what you'll watch for, and we'll include kind of Colorado and Kansas in this too, is I would say right at around 5, 6 p.m., expect storm development to fire up here in eastern Colorado, potentially even further northeastern Colorado, might get going in western Kansas, and these storms could be quite intense. And then they'll quickly grow up scale. And I'm telling you, most storm chasers, for example, which I know a lot of people who watch my channel watch live feeds of storm chasers, I think most chasers will most likely be up in Wyoming, and that's where I would be too. But you're probably going to get a couple intense storms in western Kansas. So if you're in a town in western Kansas, watch out. You could get 1, 2, maybe 3 intense supercells that get going. But, if you're in the western sections of Texas today, all the way from Amarillo down to Lubbock to Odessa and everybody in between, expect a chance for some strong to severe storms. It just depends on if it hits you or not. And then we'll go on and get a little bit closer at this. And these storms quickly develop. You could have some large hail, even though there's not a chance for significant hail, which remember is 2-inch in diameter or larger. You very well could get some very large hail. But what I want to watch is, if you're in the northern sections of Texas, southern Oklahoma, we're getting into about 10 p.m. at this point, 11 p.m., midnight. These storms, if the H-R model is correct, start to straddle that Red River region. And, do they extend as far north as Oklahoma City overnight tonight? Not sure, but I don't think this is going to be nothing compared to what you saw last week, where you got round after round of complexes of storms producing like 80 to 100 mile per hour winds. I think you need to watch out overnight tonight along the Red River, north and south of it. And these storms could make their way all the way into northeast, eastern sections of Texas. You could be waking up to some thunderstorms tomorrow morning in the Louisiana, Texas state line. So it's crazy. These storms pretty much form just east of the New Mexico, Texas state line and work their way across all of Texas, southern Oklahoma, throughout the overnight hours. So they drive across the entire state of Texas. So just be careful in these regions right into here throughout the overnight hours. We'll talk about the north central U.S. and then we'll discuss in detail what's going to happen in the northern plains potentially. These showers and storms will continue to work their way across the Dakotas of what's kind of falling right now. So, if you're in the eastern Dakotas, expect some showery, maybe some downpours. Not expecting much severe weather, but as we work our way into Minnesota, you could get some thunderstorm development, even some storm development in northern Wisconsin. You can get some rain. I know the UP of Michigan's getting quite dry based off some people telling me. Steve and you guys are telling me it's getting quite dry in the UP of Michigan. You could try to squeeze some rain in the western UP of Michigan, some downpours, but nothing's going to be widespread by any means. But I would say if you're from central to northern Minnesota, you run a risk of seeing some storm activity for sure. And like I said, you might even get a storm in the UP of Michigan. It just depends. But then this is when our focus shifts further west. Okay, and let's go on and jump to that. All right, you're dealing with the morning convection this morning in the Dakotas. All right, and then you get this low that begins to eject across the Rockies, across the mountains out west. And then you get widespread shower and storm development. Even in the higher elevations in Yellowstone National Park, it is snowing. This will be pretty heavy snow, but you got to get pretty darn high up to get snow. And then storms become widespread in southern Montana. And then this is when the storm initiation gets going. As early as 3, 4 o'clock, these get going. And then I'm really watching a potential for a slow-moving supercell. I'm going to try to pronounce some names here in Wyoming, but what is it? Lusk, Lusk, Wyoming, somewhere around that area, just south of Torrington, Wheatland, Douglas, down the Cheyenne. This little corridor right into here could definitely see some intense storms. Lingle, I'm watching something, and Cheyenne's down into this region right in here. It's going to be well north of Cheyenne, I think, but it could just as well be a little bit further tucked into the southeast corner of Wyoming. But I'm watching some powerful supercells, not a ton, but a few of them, maybe just one dominant one that gets going in this area right into here. And these will get going, and they'll quickly grow up scale. But if you're going to get a tornado, it's probably going to be sometime later this afternoon, this evening in eastern Wyoming, and it's probably going to be off one or two cells that gets going in between those cities and towns I just mentioned in Wyoming. So please be careful. We don't know exactly, exactly where it's going to form by any means. If this was exact science, it really likes the idea of this forming in and around the Douglas area. It really likes that area. If I'm going off this little lake right into here. So just north of this lake, which is the Glendo Reservoir. Glendo Reservoir. So Glendo, just north of you guys. I'm not saying this is exactly where a supercell is going to be. This is where the HRRR model likes the idea of some intense storms. So be aware of that. These storms quickly begin to grow up scale. Now, I know you see a lot of dark reds and pinks up here in Montana, and you can't rule out any severe weather, but I really think you're lacking some ingredients up here for these to be extremely severe, storms. But a lot of heavy rain, hail, and some strong winds are possible. An isolated tornado threat, but I really think this is just going to be a lot of heavy rain and storm activity. But once you get down here, these storms, watch what they do. And like I said, if you're in central South Dakota, you could get some intense storms too. All these could be dangerous. At this point, we're getting into about 8, 9 p.m. The sun is beginning to set. And, we're going to hope that the worst of the severe weather is done by the time daylight ends, because, of course, once it gets nighttime, it gets dangerous. But these storms quickly grow up scale as they move. The severe weather threat pretty much ends for Wyoming. It is really getting going here in western Nebraska, the western half and central areas of South Dakota. And this is where a pretty nasty line of storms could work its way. And I'm looking at Google Maps down there. That's why I keep looking down. Scottsbluff, Chadron, Alliance, Pine Ridge, South Dakota, Hot Springs, Rapid City. Late into the evening hours, you guys could see some intense storms. And these pretty much roll through the central and northern half of Nebraska as we're getting into the overnight hours. Once you get, most people will probably be asleep. This is around midnight, 1 a.m. Please be aware of this complex of storms. It makes its way through a large portion of Nebraska. I would say the only area that might not get impacted is far southern Nebraska, but southern South Dakota and then the northern half of Nebraska. Intense storms will blast through overnight. And then by the time you're waking up tomorrow morning, these could be in Omaha, making its way into western Iowa, areas of western Minnesota. But, it's going to start off as some supercells here in eastern Wyoming, maybe eastern Wyoming, western sections of Nebraska, South Dakota, but quickly grow up scale, turning into a pretty significant line of storms. So you look at the impacts, and it picks up on that cell that I was just talking about a couple minutes ago, north of the Glendo Reservoir here in Wyoming. And it really likes the idea of this one producing. You see an extremely highlighted area of this updraft helicity swath. You got rotating, cell rotation showing up also a little bit further west in Wyoming. And obviously you're going to have probably some spin ups with this line of storms that works its way through South Dakota and Nebraska. But if there's going to be 1 or 2 storms that forms, I would watch also a cell down here in northern Colorado and then Wyoming, going into the border of Nebraska and South Dakota. This will have a chance to produce a tornado, and hopefully it's just out in those plains. It's just very photogenic. It's just doing its own thing. It's not messing with anything except just some grass and things like that, dirt, but you just never know. So talk about the wind speeds with this potential line of storms that I'm concerned about, and this is why you have a significant risk of winds per the Storm Prediction Center. And if you look at this highlighted area, at this point it's about close to the midnight, but this right in here, that's 70 to 80 mile per hour wind gust with this line. And then look at this. This is blasting through the western sections of Nebraska and moving into central Nebraska. This is anywhere from 60 to 80 mile per hour wind gusts. It's going to work its way through the state, and then also areas of extreme southern sections of South Dakota. So please watch out for a line of storms that sweeps through the state later tonight that could produce some hurricane force winds, and that's why you have a chance of that. The rest of the Rockies, pretty quiet, except Montana, which will experience a lot of heavy rain today, even along kind of the this section right here of Idaho, southwest Montana. You guys will get a lot of heavy rain today, a lot of storm activity, but this will quickly, pretty much, you'll get a pretty stout gradient right here where the rain will cut off and then all of it will shift eastward with the low pressure shifting eastward. But basically, if you're in the entire southern half of Montana, we'll stop this around 8-9 p.m. tonight. It is raining like crazy, very stormy evening, and a lot of rain could be falling. But if you're in far northern Montana, not as much rain. And you can see it right here. It's a big time cutoff in northern Montana, but the central and southern portions of Montana, anywhere from, 1 to 2 inches of rain could fall. And a lot of rain's going to fall in Nebraska and southern South Dakota overnight. A lot of rain's falling already this morning in certain areas, but you could definitely get a lot of rain, okay? 1 to 2, maybe as much as 3 inches. Temperatures today, this upper level low is beginning to shift north and northeast. Therefore, cooler temperatures are going to be more so in the Ohio Valley areas of the interior northeast. For example, it's kind of weird, eastern areas of Michigan only in the 60s for highs. You move into the western part of the state and the UP of Michigan, 80s, maybe even 90 degrees. It's just cloud cover and rain showers. You're starting to warm and recover back up in the southeast, but you're still going to be dealing with lingering clouds, lingering showers. It's going to keep your temperatures still well below average. Summer is just struggling in the southeast, and I'm all for it. I know that my summer fans are booing me right now, but I'm all for it. I'm all for it. It's unbelievable to me that we're almost at July 1st, and I think we've only hit 90 degrees here. And what I consider the armpit of hell in Columbia, South Carolina, but Texas has certainly been the armpit of hell this summer and last summer. But I think it's hit 90 degrees like 6 times. I think last year at this point, which was normal, we done hit 90 degrees like 22 times based off my weather station on top of my house. But very hot across the south central U.S. The Mississippi Valley especially points west. 90s widespread in all these areas you see, mid-90s. It's very, very hot, very warm all the way up into the upper Midwest. The western U.S., you still remain below average, especially right around this low that's going to be ejecting across the Rockies. If you're visiting Yellowstone National Park today, it's going to be a bad weather day, chilly, rainy. You get high enough up, snowy. But in the flatter regions of Washington State, well into the 80s, still well below average across the western U.S., though. Typically in the valleys of California, you're getting well into the upper 90s and hundreds this time of the year. Update on the tropics, guys. Cindy is a 45 mile per hour storm and 1,005 millibar low pressure. This is not expected to impact anybody except bring swells probably to the lesser and greater Antilles. So this is expected to move this way. I'll show you that here in a second. Tropical storm Brett is impacting the lesser Antilles right now as we speak. All the worst weather is right over that area because basically the eastern portion of this storm is being pretty much destroyed by shear, therefore dry air is working in. It's pretty much complete. It looks, the tropical storm Brett is definitely having a hard time this morning. And we expected this. It's officially entered what we call the graveyard of the Eastern Caribbean. So it is absolutely getting destroyed by shear right now, and it'll continue to weaken. It's technically still a 60 mile per hour storm, but I can tell you it doesn't look like one when I'm about to show you here. But you still got tropical storm warnings up for areas of the lesser Antilles, but this will continue to track across the Caribbean and eventually weaken into a depression. We'll see if this tries to, fight off some bad conditions and maybe try to reform. But, this could eventually affect areas of Central America, Honduras, Nicaragua, maybe Costa Rica with some showers and things like that, maybe as we get into next week, but we'll watch it. But looking at Cindy is going to head on out to sea. What does it do once it gets right here? I don't think it matters. It does matter because we got to watch Bermuda, but I think it's just going to get blasted by shear pretty bad. But it's still expected to be a tropical storm as late as early next week, so we'll watch it. I think the max it's supposed to get to is maybe a 55, 60 mile per hour storm. I didn't even look in detail, but Cindy's trucking along, and we've taken 3 names through June in a very weird area of the ocean already this hurricane season. We take a look at both of these systems, and like I said, this is the center of circulation of Brett. You can see the spin if you look close enough, but all the convection, which you see all these higher colors right here, is all either immediately around the center or well west of it, getting basically pushed away from the center of circulation, signs of a weakening system. Now, Tropical Storm Cindy doesn't look that bad as of now. Big explosion of convections when it was ongoing overnight into this morning. We'll see how she does as she works her way west and eventually northwest. But as of now, we expect this to eventually weaken and not affect much. You see these clouds streaming in from the north right into here. That is an upper level low that will, in fact, yank Cindy up and eventually weaken it because of shear associated with winds aloft. I know my folks probably across the Midwest are booing me on the Ohio Valley because I'm not going to get super detailed with you guys, and I promise you I will in tomorrow morning's video. Unless I have time to get in the video tonight, I might, but I doubt it. But you have a slight risk of severe storms for tomorrow. So we watch Iowa, northern Missouri, areas of Illinois, southern sections of Minnesota, even areas of Wisconsin. The good news about this is it's going to bring rain to areas that really need rain, like Illinois, that I've heard a lot is getting very, very dry. But the bad news is you're going to get severe weather with it. But as of now, you got a slight risk in this region, right in the middle of the Midwest. Tornado risk, you got a 5% risk right over Des Moines. We got to watch to see how the storms behave today. But you could certainly turn around and get a higher risk of all of this tomorrow. But the wind threat, 15% risk in this huge entire slight risk area. It's 15% risk, as you know, of winds exceeding 50 knots or higher. And then the hail threat. You already have a significant risk of hail. 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. And then a 10% risk of significant hail. So that's 2 inch in diameter or larger in this region. So we're going to have another day of severe weather tomorrow. But I'm really concerned about Sunday, guys. And this includes more of a highly populated area. Basically all the way from northeast Missouri, northeast Arkansas, the Boot Hill, Missouri, areas in the Mid-South like Tennessee, all the way up into the Ohio Valley, into areas of Ohio, Indiana. I know I got a good bit of people who view from this area. You just have a slight risk for now, but this is likely going to get upgraded to an enhanced risk. It already mentions that in the Storm Prediction Center. Confidence isn't high enough at this point to do it right now, but I can almost guarantee you that sometime today, or by the time we get to this time tomorrow, you're going to have an enhanced risk for Sunday. Right now, it's probably going to be for large hail and damaging winds, but you're going to have a tornado risk too. And you already have a significant risk of just severe weather. At day 3, you never have the specifics as far as tornado, wind, and hail. It always is just a chance of severe weather, but you do have a chance. And so, big cities like Cincinnati, you might as well say Indianapolis, down to Nashville, Paducah. I know that's not a big city, but you get what I'm saying. Louisville. Severe weather's coming. And then as we get into Monday, I wouldn't be surprised if this gets into the mid-Atlantic, the areas of the southeast, but that's getting very, very far ahead. But really what's driving this, and this is the upper ridge you see in this orange area. This is what's baking the south central U.S. This is our trough out west. And if you see this little bend right here in these lines, that is our shortwave trough with associated low pressure. And this is going to eject across the northern plains, create all the severe weather today and overnight tonight. And then as we get into tomorrow, here's our low right into here. This is going to create an environment supportive of severe weather right in here, which typically always happens on the eastern, the southeast, the southern sections of these short waves. Yanks in all these ingredients. You're still baking down here in the south central U.S. All right. And then you get into Sunday. As you can tell, this is rounding the upper lines, the upper portion of this ridge down here. This is the avenue it's taking. This is where the jet is. So this is the road network for these storm systems. So it begins to kind of get to the top, move more west to east, and then it begins to move back northwest to southeast. It dives down, and then this is going to create some significant severe weather across portions of the Ohio Valley. You can see these pressure gradients kind of bubbled up right in here, bending. That tells me there's explosive storms probably firing up right into here as we get into Sunday afternoon and evening. And then we get into Monday, same deal. I'm watching a severe weather threat for Monday afternoon and Monday evening, maybe as far south as South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia. This is certainly something we need to watch. And we already have another trough digging out west. So more severe weather is possible next week. I hope that helps, guys. We'll get more detail on that in the coming video or two. God bless all y'all. Stay safe out there out west, and please be weather aware. God bless. Have a great Friday.